There is something quiet about real strength. It doesn't roar. It doesn't puff its chest. It doesn't arrive with trumpets or grand declarations. Real strength, the kind that transforms lives and builds bridges between people, is soft. It is slow. It is uncertain. And perhaps most importantly, it is vulnerable. Vulnerability is a word we often misunderstand. To many, it sounds like weakness. It sounds like crying in public, exposing your secrets, being too much or not enough. To some, it evokes discomfort, even danger, the fear that if we open ourselves up, we will be hurt, mocked, or left behind. So we build walls. We armor up. We present carefully polished versions of ourselves and hope no one sees through the cracks. But something magical happens when we stop pretending, when we let the cracks show, when we gently place the armor down and say, "This is who I really am." Not the version we curate for social media. Not the mask we wear at school, at work, or in relationships. The real us, messy, emotional, unsure, beautifully human. When we allow ourselves to be seen, truly seen, we unlock a kind of connection that no amount of perfection could ever achieve. Vulnerability is the gateway to intimacy, to trust, to healing. It's the foundation of every real relationship, including the one we have with ourselves. You might be reading this thinking, but I've been vulnerable before, and I got hurt. And that's fair. Vulnerability isn't safe in every space, and not everyone deserves access to your tenderness. But when you offer your truth to someone who honors it, you both grow. And when you offer it to yourself, the transformation is even deeper. We live in a world that rewards control. We are taught to be polished, composed, in charge. Emotions are to be managed, tears are to be hidden, softness is to be saved for rare moments. But beneath that surface, we are all aching to be real. We are aching to say, "I'm scared. I don't know what I'm doing. I feel alone. I want to be loved." To be vulnerable is not to be weak. It is to be honest. And honesty, raw, human honesty, is one of the rarest, most powerful things in the world. You see it in moments that catch your breath, a child reaching for their parent's hand, a friend whispering, "I miss you," a partner confessing, "I don't know how to fix this, but I want to try." These are not moments of weakness. These are moments of brave, trembling strength. Because to be vulnerable is to risk. To show yourself without guarantee. To say, "Here I am," without knowing how the world will respond. But that risk is where life happens. Love happens in vulnerability. Art happens in vulnerability. Growth, forgiveness, joy, they all live in that uncertain space where we let ourselves be known. Think of the last time you felt deeply connected to someone. Not just polite conversation, but real connection. What made that moment special? It probably wasn't because everything was perfect. It was probably because something real was shared. A story, a tear, a laugh that came from the belly. That's vulnerability. And yet, so many of us spend our lives avoiding it. We hide our feelings. We downplay our dreams. We smile when we want to cry. We say we're fine when we're falling apart inside. We fear being a burden, being judged, being misunderstood. So we hold it in. But emotions that are held in don't disappear. They grow heavy. They twist into anxiety, bitterness, exhaustion. We feel isolated, not because others are so different from us, but because we haven't let them see us. And we haven't seen ourselves. There is a reason why so many people feel lonely, even when surrounded by others. It's not a lack of company, it's a lack of authenticity. It's being around people but feeling like no one knows who you really are. And that loneliness, that ache, cannot be filled with more followers, more noise, or more distractions. It can only be healed with presence, openness, and truth. We've been taught to believe that if we're vulnerable, we'll fall apart. But often the opposite is true. When we allow our true emotions to rise, we don't collapse, we soften. We breathe. We begin to feel again. And through feeling, we heal. Some of us learned early that vulnerability was dangerous. Maybe you opened up to someone who used your words against you. Maybe your emotions were dismissed, mocked, or punished. If that's your story, I want you to know, your hesitancy is valid. You protected yourself the best way you knew how. That protection was wise. But the danger of always being protected is that you also block out what is nourishing. You are allowed to be discerning. You are allowed to decide who is safe. But you are also allowed to want more. You are allowed to long for relationships that feel honest and kind. You are allowed to outgrow spaces where your soul is asked to hide. You are allowed to want connection that feels like home. The truth is, vulnerability isn't about spilling everything to everyone. It's not about sharing your wounds with people who haven't earned your trust. Vulnerability is about being real. It's about alignment between your inner world and your outer expression. It's about letting your truth have space. That can look like saying no when you mean no. Saying, I need help when you're overwhelmed. Saying, I'm excited about this, even if others might not get it. Or saying, this hurt me, even when it feels awkward. Small moments of truth-telling matter. They build trust with yourself and with others. And trust is the foundation of everything. Here's something else that's true. Vulnerability is contagious. When you share honestly, you give others permission to do the same. You create a space where masks can fall away and people can meet in their humanness. You don't have to be perfect to be loved. You don't have to have all the answers. You don't have to pretend to be strong when you're not. You can be messy and uncertain and emotional, and still be worthy. In fact, you were never more worthy than in the moments you were most real. If we all allowed ourselves to be just a little more vulnerable, the world would change. Families would heal. Friendships would deepen. Workplaces would soften. Strangers would feel less like strangers. We'd stop comparing our behind the scenes with everyone else's highlight reel. We'd stop judging our sadness as weakness. We'd stop pretending we're okay when we're not. And we'd stop expecting others to be okay all the time, too. We'd start listening better, loving more patiently, forgiving more freely. We'd realize that everyone is carrying something, some story, some struggle, some ache, and that we're all just doing our best. Vulnerability connects us, and connection is what we're here for. You are allowed to take off the mask. You are allowed to be seen. You are allowed to feel. Not someday. Not when you're better. Not when things are easier. Now. Right here, in the life you have. In the body you have. With the heart you have. Your softness is not your shame. It is your gift. Your tears are not your flaw. They are your truth. And your truth is what will guide you home. You don't have to rush. You don't have to force anything. Just take one step. One honest moment. One quiet breath. Say what's true for you. Feel what's real. And let the rest fall away. You are not broken. You are not too much. You are human. And that, in all its messy, tender beauty, is more than enough. Most of us don't wake up one day and decide to hide who we are. It's something that happens slowly, quietly, and usually for a good reason. At some point, being real didn't feel safe. Being open felt risky, and so we learned to wear masks. Some of us learned to be the strong one, always capable, always calm. We were told not to cry, to hold it together, to be the dependable one. And so we buried our fears, ignored our needs, and became the helper, the achiever, the one who never breaks. Others became the quiet one. We stayed small, kept our opinions to ourselves, tried not to take up too much space. Maybe we were told we were too sensitive, too loud, too much. So we dimmed our light and tried to disappear. Some became the funny one. We used jokes to hide the sadness. We deflected with laughter, with sarcasm, with smiles. We kept everyone entertained, even while quietly struggling inside. And some of us became the perfectionist. We thought if we did everything right, if we looked right, acted right, succeeded enough, then maybe we'd be safe. Maybe we'd be loved. Maybe we'd finally feel like we were enough. These masks aren't bad. They were our way of surviving. Our way of navigating a world that didn't always welcome our true selves. But over time, the mask becomes heavy. It itches. It suffocates. And worst of all, it separates us from the very things we want most: belonging, connection, peace. Because here's the hard truth. A mask can win approval, but it can't win love. When people only see the version of us we've curated, they're not really seeing us. And no amount of praise or attention can fill the hole of feeling unseen. That's where vulnerability comes in. It's not about throwing away the mask all at once. It's about slowly loosening it, trying life without it for a few moments at a time, seeing what happens when you say, actually, I'm not okay, or that hurt me, or I don't know the answer. And often, more often than we expect, we're met with kindness. Not always, of course. Not everyone will understand. Some people will judge or mock or distance themselves, and that hurts. But those people were never seeing the real you in the first place. And their response is not a reflection of your worth. It's a reflection of their own fear. The more you practice being honest, the more you start attracting people who are honest too. People who don't expect you to be perfect. People who can hold space for your tears, your confusion, your softness. And being around those people, it feels like breathing for the first time in years. Vulnerability also helps us relate more kindly to ourselves. When we stop judging our emotions and start listening to them, something beautiful happens. We begin to understand why we feel what we feel. We start to realize our anxiety isn't something wrong with us. It's our body asking for safety. Our sadness isn't weakness. It's evidence that we care deeply. Our anger isn't a failure. It's a signal that something matters to us. Emotions are messengers, and when we allow them to speak, we discover things we never noticed before. But many of us weren't taught how to listen to ourselves. We were taught to push through, to be tough, to get over it. And while resilience is important, it's not the same as repression. Real resilience is not about ignoring your pain. It's about facing it, feeling it, and coming through it with more understanding. Sometimes, the bravest thing you can do is admit that you're hurting, or confused, or scared. Vulnerability isn't the absence of fear. It's the willingness to feel fear and still show up. There's a quiet courage in that, a kind of steady, unshakable bravery that doesn't need to shout or prove anything. It just is. The truth is, life is uncertain. We don't get guarantees. We don't get to control everything. But vulnerability teaches us that even in that uncertainty, we can still choose honesty. We can still choose connection. We can still choose to show up. One of the reasons vulnerability feels scary is because it reminds us we're not in control of how others respond. We can open our heart and still be misunderstood. We can tell the truth and still not be received the way we hope. But the point of vulnerability isn't to get a certain reaction. It's to live in integrity, to live in truth, to offer ourselves the gift of being real. And being real, even if it's not always comfortable, is one of the most liberating things we can experience. It's the feeling of finally breathing without armor, of standing in front of a mirror and recognizing the person looking back, of no longer needing to remember which version of yourself you showed to which person. It's peaceful, and it's powerful. Here's something that might surprise you. Vulnerability doesn't always look like crying or confessing. Sometimes it looks like laughter, like saying, "I love you" first, like asking for help, like telling a friend you're proud of them, like dancing even though you feel awkward, like saying, "I'm excited," even if you might fail. Vulnerability is about truth, not just pain. It's about being real, whether that means sadness, joy, awkwardness, hope, or fear. And it's not always dramatic. Sometimes it's in the smallest moments, making eye contact instead of looking away, saying thank you and really meaning it, letting someone see you when you're not at your best. Not trying to impress, just trying to be. That's the beauty of this journey. It doesn't demand perfection. It just asks for presence. You don't have to fix everything before you're allowed to be loved. You don't have to wait until you're confident to be seen. You don't have to hide your doubts or your dreams. You can bring all of it with you, the mess, the magic, the fear, the joy. You are not too broken to be loved. You are not too sensitive, too dramatic, too emotional. You are not too much, and you are not enough. You are simply human, and being human means having needs. It means feeling things deeply. It means longing for connection, for truth, for safety, for meaning. None of that makes you weak. In fact, the people who feel the most are often the strongest. They've survived heartbreak, disappointment, rejection, and they've kept their hearts open. That is strength. The people who dare to love again after loss, who risk friendship after betrayal, who speak their truth after being silenced. Those people are warriors in a quiet, powerful way. You don't need to be louder to be stronger. You don't need to be tougher to be safe. What you need is to believe that your real self is worthy of love, and then surround yourself with people who reflect that truth back to you. If you've never had people like that in your life, it can feel hard to imagine. But they exist. And the more you live from your truth, the more clearly you'll recognize them. You'll know them by how your body relaxes in their presence. How you don't have to explain your feelings. How you feel heard, not just listened to. You deserve relationships like that. You deserve to feel safe. You deserve to be loved not in spite of your vulnerability, but because of it. Your softness is a treasure. Your honesty is a gift. Your willingness to feel, to care, to speak, it's rare. And it's needed. The world doesn't need more perfection. It needs more presence. It needs more people who are willing to say, "I don't have it all figured out, but I'm here. I'm trying. I'm real." That's what changes things. That's what creates space for healing. Vulnerability doesn't make you fragile. It makes you open. And open is where the light gets in. Have you ever had a moment with someone where, for a split second, you both dropped the act? No performance. No trying to impress. Just raw, honest, real connection. It's rare. But when it happens, it stays with you. Maybe it was a late-night conversation with a friend where you both admitted you were scared about the future, or someone opened up to you about their struggles and you saw them more clearly than ever before. Or maybe you took the risk, you told someone how much they meant to you, or admitted you were hurting, or let your guard down for once. Those moments, those honest, messy, imperfect moments, are the ones that build real connection. Because connection doesn't happen when we're performing. It doesn't grow in filtered photos or carefully worded replies. It grows in the cracks, in the pauses, in the sighs and silences and stumbles. Vulnerability is what makes love possible. It's what allows people to say, "I see you, and I still want to be close." Without vulnerability, there's no intimacy. Without honesty, there's no trust. We spend so much energy trying to be lovable, trying to be impressive, attractive, successful. But the truth is, people fall in love with our honesty, with our truth, with our willingness to be human. The parts of you that you think are unlovable might actually be the parts someone finds most endearing. The things you try to hide might be the things that make someone else feel safe enough to open up to. When you say, "I struggle with this," it makes it easier for someone else to say, "Me too." That's how it works. Vulnerability creates space. It invites people in. It doesn't guarantee they'll accept the invitation, but without it, there is no invitation at all. And here's something really important. Vulnerability doesn't always mean sharing everything with everyone. Being vulnerable isn't the same as oversharing. It's not about telling your deepest secrets to strangers. It's about being authentic, choosing honesty over perfection, choosing presence over performance. Sometimes the most vulnerable thing is saying, "I'm not ready to talk about that yet," or "I need some time," or even, "I want to trust you, but it's hard for me." You get to choose your pace. You get to choose your people. But the more you practice being real with yourself, the more naturally it will come with others. Because vulnerability starts inside. Before we can be honest with the world, we have to be honest with ourselves. That means sitting with your emotions instead of numbing them. Asking, "What am I really feeling right now?" instead of distracting yourself. Noticing when you're trying to look okay instead of being okay. And it's hard. Sometimes our defenses are so automatic we don't even realize we're using them. We say we're just tired when we're actually hurt. We say we're fine when we're falling apart. We laugh when we want to cry. That's okay. It's how we learn to survive. But now you get to unlearn that. You get to replace "I'm fine" with "I'm figuring it out." You get to say, "I don't know," and let that be enough. You get to admit, "I need help," and trust that needing others doesn't make you weak, it makes you human. Here's a practice you can try. It's simple but powerful. At the end of each day, ask yourself 3 questions. What did I feel today that I didn't express? When did I pretend to be okay when I wasn't? What would it have looked like to be more honest in that moment? Don't judge your answers. Just notice. Awareness is the first step toward change. Over time, you'll start to catch those moments as they happen. You'll hear yourself about to say, "I'm fine," and pause. You'll feel the urge to change the subject and instead stay a little longer in the silence. You'll realize that your real self is not something to hide, it's something to offer. And that's when connection becomes real. The people who matter most in your life will not love you less because of your vulnerability. They'll love you more. Or they'll love you more honestly. Because they'll finally be loving you, not the mask. And that matters more than anything. You deserve that kind of love. You deserve to be surrounded by people who don't expect you to be perfect. Who cheer for your growth but don't punish your pain. Who can hold space for your joy and your grief. Who stay when things aren't pretty. That kind of connection takes time. It takes trust. But it starts with one choice, the choice to be real. You don't have to be raw all the time. You don't have to spill everything. You just have to take one small step toward truth, again and again. Say what you mean. Feel what you feel. Let people see the parts of you that don't have all the answers yet. Let them see the real you. That's where connection begins. And so we return to where we began, not in the noise of the world, but in the quiet within. We've walked through the tangled roots of vulnerability, explored how silence can speak louder than explanation, and seen how powerful it is to reclaim your energy, your time, your attention. We've looked at the beauty in being misunderstood, the strength in letting go, and the courage it takes to set a boundary and not flinch when it's tested. But if you take only one thing with you from this journey, let it be this: you are allowed to protect your peace. You are allowed to love deeply, feel fully, and still choose yourself. You don't have to overgive to be good. You don't have to be accessible to be kind. And you don't need to prove your worth through exhaustion. The world will keep spinning. People will keep asking. But you get to decide when to answer. You get to choose who enters your sacred space. You get to take your time, breathe, reflect, and respond, or not respond at all. It's not selfish to slow down. It's not rude to say no. It's not cold to pause and think, do I really want to give this part of myself right now? Because you are not a resource to be mined. You are not a fixer, a therapist, a savior, a reservoir of infinite patience. You are a human being, sensitive, complex, brilliant, growing. And sometimes the most revolutionary thing you can do is step back, rest, and reclaim what has always been yours. Your self-respect, your inner calm, your power. So let them wonder why you're so quiet. Let them question your silence. Let them feel the shift in your energy. Because what you're doing is sacred. You're no longer leaking pieces of yourself into places that never watered you. You're not disappearing, you're returning to yourself. And in that stillness, in that space, in that breath, you are free.